Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and got a great show for you tonight. This May 12th of 2016. We're here again on another Thursday night live here on blogtalkradio.com, and I want to thank all of you for joining us. And I want to thank particularly the Coach's Corner panel for joining me tonight. We're just waiting for one more to jump in on here, and I'm going to introduce them here in just a minute. But in the meantime, let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live every Thursdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, or that's 7 to 9 for those of you on the East Coast under Eastern Time, and 4 to 6 for those of you under Pacific Time. Easiest way to find us, go to blogtalkradio.com, type in the search key up top, type in Golf Talk Live, and that will bring you to the main page. And, of course, on the live broadcast, the current show is always at the top, so you can tune in and listen to us live. But for some reason, if you're not able to join us during the live broadcast, not to worry. All of the programs are auto-recorded. And you can go to that link, blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, and just scroll down to the on-demand section, and you'll find all of the previously aired programs there. They always have the most current at the top, and then go progressively down from there. But we hope you can join us live each week. We always enjoy that much more. But if you can't, we certainly appreciate that and glad you're able to join us anyways. Also, we would love to hear from you. You're welcome. We always invite people to call into the show if they so wish. And the number to do so is area code 646-716-4667. Again, that's 646-716-4667, excuse me. Or you're welcome to email any questions or comments to me personally, either throughout the show or afterwards, and you can do so by reaching me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. That's my email address for the program. Or if you're somebody in the golf profession and you're interested in maybe being a guest on the show, whether you're a teacher, a player, coach, or maybe an entrepreneur, maybe you've written a golf book that you'd like to share with the audience, I'd love to have you come on the program as well, and I'd be more than happy to schedule a show slot for you as well. Again, you can reach out to me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And as I always mention every week, I update through social media on Facebook and Twitter particularly, also on LinkedIn. Facebook link is Golf Talk Live blog, so go to facebook.com, type in Golf Talk Live blog, and that's the page for the show, and updated every week on who's going to be on and so forth. And you're welcome to comment or submit any questions through that link as well. And always appreciate if you haven't done so already. Appreciate if you'd like the page while you're there. You can also follow me on Twitter. Thank you to all the new recent followers on Twitter. And my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. CEO is in capital letters. Thanks, guys, for jumping in on there as well. As I mentioned, I got a great, actually a little different program tonight. Normally I have a guest following the Coach's Corner panel. But I decided not to book. I had some things that I needed to do a little bit later on this evening. So we're going to have a shorter broadcast tonight. It's just going to be roughly about an hour. And I've got a special Coach's Corner panel, a group of guys waiting here. As I said, I was just waiting for the third one to come in. Hopefully he'll be able to join us. But let me just bring the other two out right now. John Hughes, of course, has been on the show many, many times. He's one of my favorite guys on the panel. He's a PGA Master Professional. He's also the Vice President of the North Florida PGA section. And he was the 2013 PGA of America Horton Smith Award recipient, and he's also considered one of the top 30 instructors by Golf Tips magazine, Mr. John Hughes. Also joining on the panel is Todd Elliott. He's a PGA professional as well, also TPI certified, and he's the head golf professional at the Hideaway Beach Club down in Marco, Florida. He's also joining us, Mr. Todd Elliott. And hopefully Scott will be jumping in here shortly. Scott Millman, of course, also been on the show a number of times. He's a master teacher professional, and he's the owner and president of the Simple World of Golf, and he's also the co-owner and founder at the Millman N.R.G Foundation. Of course, N.R.G stands for No Restrictions Golf. Scott has a great program out there, originally up in the New Jersey area, I believe, and he's actually relocating to Dallas. He's helping many of the wounded veterans, particularly, that have come back, and he's helping them sort of transgress, if you will, back into their golf games, despite some setbacks that they've had, whether it be physical or emotional injuries. He's helping them with that transition. So thanks, Scott, for all of the great work that you're doing with many of those veterans. So without further ado, let me bring on, for the meantime, let me bring on Mr. John Hughes and Todd Elliott. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Glad you could make it, and as always, I appreciate you giving of your time. I know that we're all busy with our daily lives and out there teaching, and then obviously our family lives, so I appreciate you guys giving of your time on the Thursday evenings. As I said, I'll keep an eye out for Scott. Hopefully he'll be able to join us, and if not, we'll carry on the conversation just between the group of us. As I mentioned to you guys off air, what I wanted to talk about this week is, there's a lot of different theories, different approaches, if you will, to how we teach this game. And I'm going to focus on five of the top guys out there in the industry that we hear about all the time in the media, hear about, through Golf Channel and other media sources as well, just because they're the most widely known. Interested in getting your take on some of their different theories and approaches of the game. And then I want to sort of wrap it up with how you guys approach your teaching philosophy, if you will, if you incorporate some of or all of or none of what these guys do. So I'm going to start off first on the conversation with Butch Harmon. And one of the sort of the key elements, I've sort of put this in a point form just to keep it simple because there's a lot of information, of course. But Butch's theory basically is he believes in a sound takeaway, and he obviously focuses on swing width. He's very well known for what he refers to as a compact swing. And as we know, when he worked with Tiger, he shortened his backswing considerably to what it used to be. And part of the reason, of course, he explains that he does that is he feels that sometimes if the backswing gets a little bit too long, that left arm, of course, starts to break down and the wrists tend to overcock, and it creates a myriad of problems. So let's first, John, I'm going to start with you just since you're been on the show many, many times. And Todd, I want to get your take on this as well. Give us just an overview of that particular approach. Do you like it? Do you not like it? What do you like about it? And do you incorporate some of that analogy into your teaching as well?
I definitely build in the takeaway that the swing's got to be started with a great takeaway, because if it's not taken away in a relative easy form and in a relative similar position each and every time, you're bound to repeat some mistakes. But we got to back up a little bit in that Butch is very much a setup kind of person as well. He's done a whole lot dating back all the way to Greg Norman to change setup position to facilitate that takeaway and to keep the swing more compact. When you look back at Norman and his prior to his heyday, he had a very long swing, and under the tutelage of Butch, tended to get it compact. So where Butch gets his lineage is obviously from his father, who had a very short and compact swing, was very good with setup, always was in the right positions at the right time, so which allows the swing to move correctly. From the standpoint of view, your forward arm breaking down, leading to a myriad of issues, absolutely it could for the average golfer. For the more professional or world-class professional, it certainly does, but in a more microscopic way.
Right.
I think what the average amateur can look at from just that summation of Butch is that if you're set up correctly, and if you start that club back correctly, and I think the common thing that most people look at is when the club is halfway back, is it parallel with the ground, A, and B, is it parallel with the feet or slightly ahead? And when we look at Ricky Fowler and how much way ahead it was before coming under Butch's tutelage, it's now mirroring those same images of Tiger, Adam Scott, Greg Norman. And that's you can, if you were to study some video of different swings, you'd see very close simulation of all four of those golfers.
Yeah, and I certainly and let me just preface this first, before we continue in the conversation here, I just want to express to the listeners out there that we're not advocating one over the other or saying in any way, shape, or form that one necessarily approach is better than the other. This is just five professionals, coaches, whatever you want to term them as, in your own mind. Guys that are very well known in the industry by not just the players, but obviously those in the coaching and teaching side of things, that have sort of uniquely different styles in the way that they handle their players. But there are certainly key fundamentals, of course, that they're applicable to making a good golf swing that they all certainly adhere to. And John, you pointed that out, with a good setup and that. Obviously, everything starts with a good setup before you move into the actual golf swing. So certainly I don't want to give the illusion that they don't adhere to that, but they do have different approaches in that. Todd, is the compact swing something that everybody could grapple to, or is this something that's maybe better suited for a taller player, perhaps a shorter player, or does it really matter? Does it depend on the individual's approach, or what do you see as far as Butch's theory?
Well, I would answer, I guess, yes. So a lot of that, it could work for a lot of people. I don't know if there's, say, a set standard of who it does work for. But, I think what he's done well with some of those traits that he likes to see is that he'll teach one thing out of the three to a player, let's say a Ricky Fowler, who he's trying to get the club in a certain position at the takeaway, and they'll work on that for a year. They'll work on just that spot for a long time. And he doesn't jump into other things. He's not trying to teach all three of those things at once.
Right.
But and then, he's got people like Dustin Johnson, who he's not teaching that takeaway to, or Natalie Golbus, who's got a very different takeaway, and he's not exactly teaching that. He might take another aspect, and they'll work on it for a long time. At least, obviously I've never seen Butch in person teach, but that's what it looks like from a long way away. And he's grinding in that one spot what he thinks is going to make the swing better and bring it all together. Because in the end, he doesn't make the whole look totally different. Even like a Jimmy Walker, who he shortened up, and a Ricky, who he made a little bit different in the takeaway. It still looks like they have their own essence on the swing. So he doesn't take that away from them. So, I like what he does. Obviously, he's maybe the best motivator in the world, and somebody who keeps his players accountable, and he's really good at having good players come to see him, which is always nice as a teacher, to make you look good. But I like a lot of things he does. I don't think he, even though he has those things, he's not telling everybody, making them all do all three of those things or four of those things that he really likes to see. He might pick one out. Yeah,
so, and
I
think that. Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that obviously everybody's an individual, and we all have different. And the reason why I asked it in that sort of framed the question that way with you, Todd, is every player is different. Their body type is different. What particular approach might work for one player may not be as effective with another player, simply because of their body style and their body type. Some maneuverabilities in some of these swings that we're going to talk about tonight maybe present more of a challenge perhaps for certain body types than others. And that's really why I wanted to bring them to the forefront, because there are differences and each of the players. And as you said, both of you said, Todd and John, Butch doesn't necessarily take all three or four components of his swing and say, okay, you're going to do all four of these. He may look at the individual and say, in the case of Natalie Golbus, may say, okay, this isn't the best route for you. However, this is something that I think it can be well applied to your game, and it may result in success for her. But that particular thing may not work with say, Tiger or somebody else. So again, it depends on the individual, and of course, and as I said, we're not advocating that one is necessarily better than the other. It's just I wanted to discuss as something we haven't done yet on the program, is sort of discuss some of the different styles and approaches that each of these guys did, and then I wanted to get your take on it, what you think about it, and is there something from the Butch Harmon wheelhouse, if you will, that you like to adopt with some of your students. So let's move on real quick to Sean Foley, of course, I'm referring to, who also worked with Tiger for a while and certainly had some success with him. He is more of what he classifies himself as a new generation stack and tilt. In fact, he sort of advocates a modified version of the stack and tilt method. Just to give you an idea, a little bit for those that may be not familiar with that, it's more of a front-focused weight distribution, so more of the weight tends to be at address, tends to be leaning more to the front foot as opposed to sort of a balance between both feet, and this sort of avoids that dipping of the left shoulder and a straight back leg on the backswing. So there's a lot of different things there. John, I'm going to let you go first again on this here. Is there anything that you like about the stack and tilt? Is this something that you have considered yourself? Do you use it all in your teachings? And maybe just an overall thought about that particular method.
Just a real quick summation of Butch. I think the best way
Sure.
I can summate Butch is if it's not fixed, if it's not broken, let's not fix it. And Dustin Johnson's the quintessential with that, with his wrist position at the top of the swing. And Todd hit it right on the head. I've watched Butch teach, and they do grind the one thing that's really going to help the player out, and grind it and grind it and grind it if needed. From a Sean standpoint of view, the other thing he's known for is the use of technology with huge emphasis on D-plane to the average golfer. That's basically, where's that club going after it's hit the ball in relationship to your target and your swing path. And he believes that little bit of stack and tilt, or the hybrid of it that he teaches, is the best to create the better D-plane. I'm not necessarily a fan of stack and tilt. Andy Plummer, and I can't remember his partner's name that invented it, they've done a lot. They did a lot to get it going, and Sean's their disciple of it. For the average amateur, when you're talking about a reverse weight shift, the stack and tilt automatically sets them up for that. So and I see probably 80 to 90% of the amateurs that I teach that come through the golf schools that I contract with or come to see me, they have a hard time getting through the shot, trying to get the weight shift correct. So if they are stacked too much to the forward side, yes, I'm certainly trying to get them a little bit more balanced out. The ones that are a little bit more swing educated, they're a student of the game. Will I get into a little bit of D-plane with them? Absolutely. But from a very simplistic standpoint of view, the numbers are for us, for Todd and I, and for you to understand and be able to decipher in our heads. And our responsibility as great coaches is to simplify that message to the particular client we're working with at the time. The real key is taking bits and pieces from all these individuals we'll talk about today. And I'll say it a little bit different than what you said was, what about Sean Foley will work for some other people? I think to sum up, in my opinion, his philosophy is totally towards the better player. He doesn't have a whole lot of average people that he works with. So he's really looking at that world-class athlete or someone real close to that who's a golfer. And for them to be able to set up and work what he does and asks of them, it takes a lot from a physical fitness standpoint of view. And as he's working with Tiger's knee issues and ankle issues, there's some argument out there that some of the things Sean highlighted and wanted Tiger to do probably exacerbated those injuries. That's for Tiger to determine.
Sure.
But I think as the average amateur looks at it, if you're having issues trying to strike down and get a good impact position, starting with that and then having it grow from there is fantastic. You just don't want to set up there because most people will overdo it and put too much weight into that front side, causing the reverse weight shift.
Yeah, great point, John. Todd, let me ask you, just to continue on that thought, is the stack and tilt method something for those that maybe are a little more challenged with executing a proper weight shift? I'll give you an example. Very tall players, particularly. I'm considered, I'm 6'4", so I'm a tall player. Most of my height is in my legs. One of the issues I had growing up, being such a tall player, was a lot of sometimes too much lateral movement. Is a stack and tilt a good method for maybe a taller player that gets too much lateral weight shift and too much movement? In other words, too much legs involved into their swing. Would that be a good method, do you think, to help that particular student with?
Maybe the feel of stack and tilt or the ideal of it, but maybe the actual concept, getting into the actual positions that the pictures show or they want you to have. I would say that would be difficult for most to hit the ball from that position, in my opinion. I mean, I'm somebody who deals with a lot of people who don't swing the club very, very fast. So a stack and tilt, is not something I do a lot of, just because they teach a lot of shaft lean at impact and things like that. And my people can't hit it 4 feet off the ground with that impact position because the speed is not there to create the loft. So, I probably have a little bit skewed view of it just because of the, like John said, Sean's teaching people, very fast, high swing speed players. So if they can get the shaft lean forward on the irons and somewhat neutral, maybe straight up and down on the driver, they're going to get a lot out of it. But, I don't find it as an advantageous position for most people. I like somebody, we're talking about, and when Sean was doing the DVDs, he was talking about weight, and now we've discovered, pressure is different and things like that. And I'm no expert on it. I don't work with a body track, but I do study it. And even though he might have been talking about weight, we still might be getting the pressure on the back foot. So it's a complicated issue exactly what they're, where they were teaching weight, and now we know is pressure and how they are different and how you teach it. So, I mean, who knows exactly what they're teaching on their range right now.
Yeah. The reason why I say, and I agree, guys, well said, both of you. Again, just to sort of back up for a second, I'm not, the purpose of this discussion tonight is not to, emphasize one method or theory over the other, but just to really look at the fact that, and these guys really prove it, that, no one swing fits everybody. There's many options out there, and you really have to, with working with your professional out there, whether it be a teacher professional or coach, if you're in that level, you really need to take a look at a lot of different options that are going to work with you, and not just sort of because you hear so-and-so is doing this, or you see somebody on the PGA Tour or LPGA Tour doing a specific method that necessarily is going to work for you. So you really have to, through that assessment process in the beginning with working, especially with a new teacher, you really need to sort of look at all the aspects and then find one, or find a method, if you will, that works best for your particular body and your abilities and things like that. I want to move on to our next swing guru, if you will, and that's, of course, Hank Haney. And Hank has, again, something a little bit different. And again, just let me emphasize that, all of these guys certainly will emphasize on, good sound fundamentals, grip and stance and posture and all of that. But they do have different ways that they approach it. And one of the things, and I'll give you verbatim what Hank, his core philosophy is in his own words, and that is to teach his students to become their own best teacher by getting to understand the flight of the ball and how it relates to the swing, with emphasis on swinging the golf club on their own correct swing plane. So essentially, what he's saying, and Todd, I'm going to start with you this time, and then John, I'll let you wrap up on Hank Haney. Really, essentially what he's saying is he wants them to understand when the ball reacts a certain way, what's causing it, so sort of a cause and effect, and helping the student understand that so they can do a little bit of their own self-diagnosis. Is this a good thing, do you think, or is this something that's going to confuse them further?
I think it's a great thing. I think, it probably hurt him with Tiger. Tiger, he wanted him to kind of coach himself towards the end, but and be self-diagnosis. And Tiger, Hank he only taught Tiger. That was his full-time job. But, yeah, I think the students should know the difference. And sometimes they can't even depict what a shot is. They'll pull it and call it a hook. And they need to know the difference between that, and they need to know how the ball flies. I think teaching people the D-plane is really essential. And I've gotten arguments with people about that. Some disagree because it's a physics and it's a lot of information. But I work with pretty smart people who've done pretty well in their life, and they can understand a little physics. So I think it's very, very important. Hank goes about it a little differently than I do, how to change those flights. But, I think it's important. And then I think it's important for the student to figure a little bit out on their own how to hit all those flights, and he works really well with that. He does a really nice job of having all the students hit what he calls the 9-ball flights, and work like that. I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, I do as well. John, what about you? Hank's approach, sound approach, do you think? What do you like about it? Is there things from his sort of philosophy, if you will, that you've adopted for your own over the years as a master teacher professional?
Well, as far as trying to teach the client to be their own best coach, that dates back to Jim Flick and Bob Tosky with the Digest Schools, dating got 45 years now, where that all came from. And that's something that I was taught through Mr. Flick to try to instill in my students, to have them understand ball flight and the cause and effect. And it's always a golf lesson's a golf lesson. A golf coach is going to provide more than just, why am I doing this? They're going to teach you why they're doing it and how to correct it. So, yeah, I do take some things from Hank that way. He's probably, the argument can be made, to paraphrase, to find somebody's own swing plane. He's basically saying that he's a believer in a single swing plane versus a two-plane swing, which Jim Hardy argues about in his book. And Jim Hardy and Hank are good friends, good acquaintances, and they've rubbed off on each other that way. There's no doubt that the more efficient swing is the more one-plane swing. But I think where Hank is coming from, that I try to have my clientele understand, is that you're only capable of doing it to your capability, to your potentiality. So let's explore that potentiality and what that is. And there's no necessary standardization of what the measurement may be. It is up to you and how you stand to the ball. Some people are going to be a little bit more upright. Some people are going to be a little bit more flat. If they understand what flat's going to do to a ball or what upright's going to do to a ball, and then they're able to make their adjustments and diagnose midway through the round what's going on, that's what we all owe our clientele to have a better understanding of. Yeah,
again, well said, both of you. I think what I take away from Hank's approach that I really like about it is the fact, and I think that some people, at sort of first hearing, what I said in the beginning about what he's trying to, his sort of core philosophy is, certainly make no mistake that he's not trying to say, well, you don't need professional help. Once you're sort of taught, that's it, you can go about your merry way. But I think he wants to have the students have a general understanding of sort of that cause and effect, why things are reacting the way they are. And, as you said, John, whether your swing is more upright or more flat, why the ball reacts the way it does under these different conditions. He certainly doesn't want people tinkering with that when they're out in the golf course playing it around, but it certainly can help you to understand a little bit, and also helps, I think, communications between student and coach. A lot of times, I think, especially for new students, they're a little confused, they don't understand, and I think having a little bit of that knowledge, can certainly work as a positive and a negative. I mean, a negative, I think, sometimes if students have too much information, they tend to be their own worst enemy, because they're always questioning and the judgment of the coach. But at the same time, I think having a general knowledge and understanding of why the ball reacts the way it does under certain conditions, I think it certainly can be a good thing. And, I agree with both of your answers. I think there's some great things to take out of this. But again, as I said with the other two, no one method or swing is going to fit everybody. And I think that's why there's so many different approaches to the game. So really you have to really sit down and talk with your golf professional, your teacher professional or coach, and really formulate a game plan that's going to work best for you. Let's move on to our good friend from across the sea, if you will, originally, certainly over here in the U.S. now, but Mr. David Ledbetter, one of the things that we go back into, I guess, around the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, of course, we remember him working with Nick Faldo, and often referred to as the Machine. And one of the unique things about David Ledbetter and his philosophy really can be summed up this way is golf swings are like fingerprints. No two are the same, which is essentially what I was just saying. He's most notably hailed for his invention of the A-swing. And in a nutshell, the A-swing is another option for those unable to successfully master some of the conventional approaches that we may come across. Its fundamental elements include proper grip, athletic posture, and well-practiced pivot, sequentially synchronized positioning of the club and body, and lastly, an overall observance of the individual player's natural rhythm. So essentially what he's trying to do is he's trying to get you set up, as they all are, in a proper position, and then letting that individual's natural flow and rhythm of their own body, which again was essentially what I was trying to say, sort of help get in the way of what he's trying to teach them. So again, John, I'll let you back up. I'll let you go this time, and then Todd. Thoughts on David's approach to his method?
Well, I got to preface any statement I make about David by saying he's a personal friend.
Right.
He's in my neck of the woods, and I do bump into him quite a bit and have conversations with him about anything under the sun beyond just teaching golf.
Right.
You have to look at David, and I've actually said this to him, and he's agreed that he's Phil Ritson with marketing. And if anybody remembers the name Phil Ritson, a South African, extremely talented instructor who's still living in this area, still teaches on occasion. David is one of his first proteges that he brought here to the United States when he was the director of golf at Disney. And then from there, David went on to be at Greenleaf at the Andy Bean Studios, not too far from where I live. And from there, figured, hey, he had to latch on to someone. So it was actually Nick Price was really the first person that he latched on to, and Faldo came right after. But Faldo made the biggest splash, per se, because of his roboticness, his adaptation to so much being almost perfect. I think David to this day will say, the object was to never make him perfect. That's something that Sir Nick did on his own. But
sure.
The way you described wherever you pulled those phrases out from is Phil Ritson to a T, and he and I have talked about it. A lot of what Phil Ritson and David Ledbetter do are basically trying to find how that person swings naturally, try to hone it, try to put it into perspective with emphasis on posture, alignment, and a somewhat neutral grip is the way I would say. He doesn't necessarily teach the strong grip that's being taught today, and I applaud him for sticking with his guns that way. The fallacy to David is that everybody felt like, here's this, he's the first theory guy. He's the first guy that's put everything into a box, and he sort of unpack the box A, B, C, D, E, and then put it all together in that same order. Quite the contrary. It's just that's the way marketers put things together. I've watched David teach. I've listened to him at several seminars. I've had a beverage with him. And I think what you'll find as you go forward, you see him age, is that he'll probably start sticking back to some of his older guns as far as let's really hone positions. Similar to Butch, let's hone some positions that are going to make you most efficient based on certain criteria. He is a stickler for posture, and he has his reasons for it because he feels like that's going to provide a better plane. But has he produced a lot of winners? Absolutely. I've actually been quoted as saying, hey, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be an A6 or an A14 classification within the PGA that would afford me the ability to teach full-time. Because if it wasn't for him and his marketing prowess, his ability to sell swing aids and books and be that poster child for us, some of us wouldn't have positions. Do I adapt a lot of what he says? Some of it. I'm sort of I would call myself a Heinz 57 of everybody, which I'll surmise later in the call.
Yeah.
But as far as a posture standpoint of view, I never really put a lot of emphasis on posture until I had some deep discussions with him. And now I try to get my better players in a much better posture. And with the not-so-good players, I try to have them understand what slump and shoulders do and what a poor spine tilt may or may not do, and can they hold that spine tilt? Because that, in theory, is going to change your swing center in more dimensions than just one. Right.
Well said, and thank you for sharing some of that about David. And you're exactly right. Todd, one of the things that John had just mentioned, about working with Sir Nick Faldo, of course, being very, and I hate to use this word, but really essentially he was very robotic in his movements. He was a big stickler for getting into the, if you ever watched any of the videos, the two of them together, Nick certainly, as well did David in his discussions, emphasized a very athletic position at the setup. And, of course, Nick was very athletic himself, kept himself in great shape. One of the things that John also mentioned, too, with some of if you're working with some of the older players, it's not always easy to get them into that perfect position because their posture, just because of age and so forth. So there's some things that you have to sort of make modifications. What do you think about what sort of David's approach to things? Any thoughts or comments there? And is there anything in his way of thinking, if you will, that you adopt sometimes with some of your students?
Well, John covered a lot there, and it's obviously knowing him personally and seeing him teach. I think a lot of it's my views on the five gentlemen we're talking about or going to talk about. It would change if I saw him in person. I mean, David obviously is the best market and businessman that's ever taught ever that I at least I can think of. And he puts himself out there and puts his thoughts out there as kind of this is the way to do it, and you're going to get a lot of negative feedback because of that. Now, maybe I bet if John, when he watches him go see him teach on the range, it's not exactly that way. He's probably taught everybody differently, and it's a lot different. But he grew up in he came in a 2D world, and so a lot of the people who are studying 3Ds have a lot of problem with some of the things that we're looking at in 2D. But that's what he was very inventive in 2D in the positions that we saw on camera, and he was very good at it. And I take away a lot of it. The club face is supposed to be in certain positions, and I'm glad that he's adapted. And I think he keeps learning. And I think I've learned more about how I'm not branding myself. I'm a head golf professional, not a teacher professional, but you can still brand yourself to the members in a very good way. And David is definitely the leader in that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Again, guys, the thing that I really want to emphasize here, again, it's not to advocate that anyone's theory or approach to the game is necessarily better than any one other's. Certainly, David is a master at branding himself, but he has the one good thing about it is it's not a flash in the pan. He's not certainly a showman in the sense that what he says doesn't have merit. It's kind of like having that sizzle in the steak. You can throw a steak on the grill, but if it doesn't, get cooked properly, it's not a very good steak. So David can certainly back up a lot of what he talks about. Obviously there's always going to be disagreement within the industry. Somebody might like a different approach, or somebody might believe in a different theory or a discussion. But, these guys, obviously one thing they do have in common is they are very knowledgeable about the golf game. They understand how to bring the best out of their students. And sounds like we got a biker in the background there. But anyways, they have an ability to be able to bring really the best out of their students that they've worked through, and that's why they're all successful. I want to bring in on the last one we're going to talk about, and then we're going to sort of revolve around to both of you and myself a little bit, and just talk about some of the things that we try to do to help our students. The last one, of course, that I'm talking about is Jim McLean, who again is certainly branded himself very well. And he's really, and I'll give you sort of a brief synopsis as well. He sort of talks about the slot swing and also 25% theory. One of the things that he's an advocate of mastering key swing fundamentals through various inventive practice drills, and he's designed them, around that. His 25% theory is structured around unique strategies for the long game, short game, mental game, and of course management, golf management. It also happens to be one of the central teaching aspects used at his schools. One of the things that he talks about is the slot swing, and essentially what that means is it requiring a player to drop the club shaft into what he refers to as an imaginary slot box during the mid part of the downswing, allowing them to be able to move along an inside-out path towards the ball. This is, again, might be deemed more of an older theory by some. Some have different ways of approaching it. Todd, I'm going to let you start this one off. What are your thoughts on Jim McLean's approach to the game, getting it and sort of dropping it into that slot?
Well, I definitely think when you're teaching in 2D, dropping in the slot is important for most players. I don't think a lot of players can recover if they get it outside that slot, even though you'll have people on tour with not clubs in that slot. But I do think it's beneficial for the average player to have it in that slot halfway down, or I guess that's about halfway down, where he's calling that slot down the line on a 2D view. I've learned a lot from Jim just about how he continues to educate himself. I think more than anything, other than the slot. I mean, he always seems to be the first one to test out anything that I've seen technology-wise come out, TrackMan, Body Track, things like that. He seems to be on the forefront of education, which is, that's what I've learned the most from him, for sure.
Yeah, and just to sort of cap off too, really his core philosophy is based around the idea that there's really more than one way to play and even teach the game. And he's, as I said along the way here, he really focuses on the individual player's needs and abilities. So he's not trying to lump everybody into one box and saying you've got to play this way or else. He looks at the individual. He tries to take, as John, I think you said, and Todd as well earlier on about Butch. He doesn't necessarily take 3 or 4 components and say, okay, you've got to do all of these in order to be successful. He sometimes will focus on certain key elements and work diligently with the particular player based on their particular skill and abilities. John, what about Jim McLean? Your thoughts on him, and his approach to it, sort of, again, as Todd put, that sort of 2D format, getting it into a slot. Is that something that in today's game is still applicable, or is it something that's kind of, again, more old school?
Todd, I think you'll appreciate this when I say that the slot was the very first 3D image that the average golfer could visualize to bring their club down to the ball within. So the argument could be made that Jim McLean was the first guy trying to teach at 3D. When you look at X Factor and the 8 different positions, I totally agree with what you were saying there, Ted, that he doesn't necessarily try to lump everyone in, but giving these 8 different positions and the camera angle from above the head to see how the shoulders and the hips create an X and how you're trying to maintain that X through impact. That's all 3-dimensional, and it was something that the average golfer, up until the time he put that out there, really probably had no vision of. They couldn't envision that within themselves. So you got to hand him a little bit of credit there. A lot of where his fundamentals come from is from the digest schools, having cut his teeth as a teacher with those, picking balls for Mr. Flick and Mr. Levin, Mr. Toski, and Mr. Grout as they started things.
Right.
He's certainly been influenced by the Chuck Cooks of the world and some other ones that he always gives homage to. The real thing that I took from Mr. McLean early on, and I've met him several times and talked to him, is the slot, because you can, on a range with some alignment sticks, show the slot and have somebody understand what that's about versus, say, always having to pull the video out and show them.
Right.
So that I've been using that for a long, long time. It's something that I just said, you know what, if I'm going to use it on video, how can I use it out on the golf course or out on the range with somebody? I would call Mr. McLean marketer number 2. There's 1A, which is David, and 1B is Jim.
Right.
And I give just as much credit to him to elevate the positions out there that full-time teachers have, because it wasn't for those two, we certainly wouldn't have such a good job to go to every day.
Yeah, and again, both of you well said. Let me ask you both this question. We've now covered all 5 of the players, and I want to get your thoughts on this. And Todd, I'll let you jump in here first, and then John, and then we'll flip it back the other way in the next question. But given the technology and given the advancements that we now understand in the golf industry, what differences do we see on the PGA? And I'm going to stick with the PGA Tour. I mean, it's obviously throughout all tours, but let's stick with the PGA Tour. If you compare today's golf professional that's out on tour compared to, say, the day of players like Nicklaus and Palmer and Trevino and all of those guys, obviously the most notable is the swings are much different looking than what we saw in their day and approached differently. But as far as scoring and all of that, what are the differences between today's players? Is there a big difference? Is there a big gap between what the players were back that time as far as scoring and that to today's player?
I would think those players were just as great, in my opinion. Obviously a different time, and I think the time from there to now is just the knowledge of performance and all the webs that it takes to get great performance, from nutrition to mental. Not saying they didn't know mental back then, but nutrition, and then working out and the CPI thing that I'm a part of, getting golf specific fitness, working on mobility and stability and power and speed and definitely tailored to the person's body. And I think it's I just think that's the change, and people are building what they call a team around them. Sorry for the noise. I'm right next to a road, so sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, there's a bike every once in a while. But anyway, you either hear Jordan Spieth talk, and it's always we, and I love it, but just because he has a team. He has a chiropractor back home. He's 21 years old, and everybody's like, oh, he's got a chiropractor. Well, that's what it is. That's what an athlete has to go through. He has a team around him of many, many people, and I'm not saying that they didn't have that before. I'm just not knowledgeable of it, of all the webs and all the knowledge that these players are getting. And you talk to a person like Brandel Chambly or hear him talk on Golf Channel, he thinks sometimes it's too much information, and I just think that's hogwash, actually. I think the more information or the correct information, not just because there's all these people around him doesn't mean they're telling him all day long what to do or how to, but they're telling him very specific, knowledgeable information that's going to help him, just that person, very specifically, and I think that's the difference.
Well, and again, well said. John, I think really, if I understand what Todd is saying, if you look at today's tour player, they're more like the CEO of the company, and all of these people surrounding them are like the, board of directors and the executive staff, if you will, that are presenting him or her with certain key information, and it's still up to the CEO to make the decision on whether they want to move forward or not in that direction. Essentially, is that what the difference is, do you think? One of the differences in today's game from what it was, 20, 30 years ago?
From having a posse, a team, sure. I agree with Matt that when you listen to Jordan Spieth or Todd, when you hear them speak about that is summarizing what they're trying to get accomplished. The CEO, I would tell you, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, Arnold Palmer, Billy Casper, all those guys were the CEOs of their destined journey as well. They just had fewer pieces to the puzzle, fewer board members per se. But when it comes to envisioning and mental, Nicklaus is sort of the guy given credit for a lot of the things that he shared that people just weren't putting out there. And that in the early 60s to mid-60s, it was controversial to envision your ball flight, but yet everybody did it. He just took the wild step to tell a newspaper reporter. The equipment's changed, so with the change in equipment, it's required a better athlete, quite honestly. I think a lot of the players that Todd and I deal with on a day-in, day-out basis benefit from the change in technology and equipment, very similar to, say, NASCAR. NASCAR is sort of the proving ground for the the motor automobile manufacturers, and some of that
right.
is trickled down. So we get the same thing in golf, but at the same time, modern day balls, modern day clubs, they're made for speed, power, agility, mobility, and we have to be real careful with that. And I think because of that technology change, you do see more buff, more fit, more mentally tough, more nutritionally fit athletes. It's gone from the guy who could hang out at his club and trounce everyone day in, day out, and then get lucky and make a Monday qualifier and win, and the next thing you know, his path of faith is there playing the tour, to, you know what, there's thousands of athletes out there trying to get 125 coveted spots.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was, as both of you were talking here, I was just sort of, going through my mind, when you look at some of the older players that were mentioned, like, again, Nicklaus and Palmer and Billy Casper and many of the others, really when you think about it, in today's game, of course, you've got the sports psychologist, but, and the nutritionist, but really most of those guys, that fell under one umbrella, and that was their spouse. Their spouse was the one that really helped them. I mean, Nicklaus talks about Barbara all the time, and of course, Arnie, and with his first wife, Winnie, we're there and we're big supporters of these guys out on tour, and Billy Casper's wife as well. That was their sports psychologist, if you will. That's who helped them through the rough times, was their family and their support system. That was their support system. Now with the tour players traveling as much as they do, it's not always convenient. Many of them do try to take their families with them, but in today's busy world, a lot of the families sometimes are doing other areas. Phil Mickelson's a good example. Certainly his family has traveled with him over the years, but there's a lot of times when, especially when his wife was ill there battling cancer, she was at home while he was off playing, and many times. So he didn't have that close connection week in, week out. Sometimes when he was playing, he had to rely on others to help him, with that transition throughout the round. The other thing, guys, that I just want to very quickly get to, and then I want to give you each a moment to really sort of sum up your approach to things. One of the other things too that I think that the average player needs to understand, because there has been some struggles over the last decade with these handicaps. A lot of players say, well, geez, I'm not getting any better despite, all this technology, John, that you just pointed out, and all of the theories that are out there. Why am I not getting better? Some thoughts on that. Why are the players today, and I'm not talking about the tour players, of course, I'm talking about some of these high handicap amateurs out there. What is really, in your opinion, the core reason that a lot of people are just not getting better? What is it they're doing or not doing that's advocating that? John, I'll let you start first, and then Todd.
I was going to defer to Todd because he's a head pro. He's at a club.
Okay.
Right. And I don't mean to put you on the spot, Todd, but I think he can better answer this from the average guy.
Don't listen to him. John's throwing you under the bus.
I'll take.
I'm just waiting for him to finish the beverage.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yes. So it's real simple to me. I don't think people. I think people are getting better. I think slightly. I think technology has helped many people, and golf is made more fun by technology. But the course designers and the organizations that run some of the courses and the tee links, that the length of tees that people play is the number one reason on stats they're not getting better, in my personal opinion. I think the baby boomers are at your clubs. They're a little bit older, and they still want to play the member tees. And the member tees are almost twice as how long they should be playing. So you got people who are playing 6,500 yards who can't hit the drive over 200 yards. Obviously, Tee It Forward and all these programs have highlighted this many times over, but I think it's still a problem. I think having the tees that are not numerical, they're a color, which is like the red. Nobody guy will go up to the red because that's a ladies' tee. Just if I had a conversation with somebody who's having struggle with that, I say take the red tee, put it on the tips. Just change them all around. Make the colors all different. Print yourself some new scorecards and go. Because if people play the tee that they're supposed to play, or I say where I believe they would have the most fun, the scores would go down, and you'd see the numbers go down, and we hopefully would have more golfers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that, and a lot of that. John, what about you? I mean, obviously you work with a lot of different variety. You work with some very highly talented players, and then you obviously have some in the mix there as well that are still struggling with their game. What are some of the things that, in your opinion, do you think are causing players maybe not to improve? We know that there's good teaching out there. We know there's good, some fantastic instruction out there. We know it's not that. But despite the equipment, there's still a lot of people out there struggling. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I'd say Todd hit on spoke number one, and there's as far as moving the tees forward or playing a tee that's appropriate for you. That's number one. Number two, and I don't mean to throw anyone out there under the bus, but if you're going to come to somebody and take a lesson or want to improve, you got to take ownership of that and spend some time outside of that lesson to work on the various things that you learned and try to ingrain them, because I've said this on the show many times, if I had Cheech and Chong's magic dust, I certainly would not be tossing it on you. I'd be tossing it on me.
Yeah.
And you've got to go out there and dig into your pockets deep and find your magic dust and work a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. I tend to give 5-minute things people can do at home when it comes to mobility and being able to work on things, say, in the office. But you've got to do that. And then I'm going to throw Todd, me, and you under the bus a little bit. I think there's a lot being over-taught. I think there's a ton being over-taught. And you and I have had this conversation before, Ted, that if we can just take some of the things that we see and make them more simple and make them more fun and more engaging, I think we'd see handicaps come down. With all the technology that's out there, better agronomic practices, which means the courses are in better shape. There's more and more and more cheaper opportunity for people to play. The very last thing is time. The fourth spoke in that wheel is time, and not necessarily from a practice standpoint of view, just time to be patient with yourself, that things just don't happen overnight, that you're not the best attorney or the best accountant or the best brain surgeon, and it just flickers right then and there. It does take some time. It takes some experience. It takes learning from your mistakes. And if you're not out there learning from your mistakes and understanding the data that you're getting from that, those four things, forward tee, practice, take ownership of your game, find a person that's going to simplify it for you, and then be patient with yourself. Your handicap will come down. That last ingredient is where I see a lot of people fail, because we're a society, Western civilization is a society of instant gratification. Golf can offer that to you. You just got to follow the directions.
Yeah, well said. And I can certainly say, and I'm sure Todd would as well, we don't mind getting thrown under the bus, because we agree with you in that respect. I think sometimes in any profession, I think if you complicate things, it makes it more of a challenge for people to absorb and learn that. I just want to add a few thoughts on what you both were talking about, and my sort of position on why I think a lot of golfers out there are struggling so much with their game. First and foremost, there's a lot of golfers out there that aren't having fun. One of the reasons is because it's become so difficult for them, and they're confused. And again, just because of what you just said, John, I think sometimes over-teaching, and that doesn't mean necessarily the amount of teaching, but sometimes too much information is given, and it's complicating and confusing the students. But I think one of the main reasons, if I was to sort of flip the dial back, 20, 30 years ago to today, I think one of the main reasons that a lot of golfers are struggling is time management. I think too many people don't have the time or are not willing to allocate sufficient time, and I'll use that word sufficient time, towards their golf game. They've got too many other activities. There's too many other draws on their attention. We all remember growing up, for those that have kids or those obviously when we were kids that played different sports and were on different teams and things like that. Parents at that time Certainly some parents were very active and very aggressive, but I can remember, and I can speak for myself, and this is no ill will towards my parents, they didn't always have or weren't always able to attend every single game or event that I was in. And, as much as I might have wanted to them at the time, they had other things. They had their own lives as well, and they were certainly very supportive. In today's society, I think parents are trying to be so involved in what their children are doing that they're not taking time to sort of, be involved in their own lives. There's just so many draws on their attention. And I think in order to be a good golfer, you have to be willing to commit a reasonable amount of time. Not just taking lessons, but you also have to commit time in applying what you're being taught. There's no point in coming to John or Todd or Ted and saying, help me with my game, and then for the next 3 weeks or 2 weeks, whatever it happens to be between the next lesson, you do absolutely nothing to work on some of the stuff that we're teaching you. You might as well just, sign over the check and we'll all retire down here in Florida and be on our merry way, and you can just kiss that money goodbye. Or go out and buy yourself a bigger TV and sit at home and watch the pros play and don't bother working on your game and just, let it go that way. And I think that's one of the big reasons. There's certainly a lot of technology, as you guys both pointed out. There's certainly a lot of great philosophy and teachings out there, but I think the average person is just not willing to allocate or has not been willing to allocate the time necessary to improve. They're looking for this quick fix. John, something else that you pointed out was, being accountable, not just for the person, but also, people are going on the internet and they're looking for all kinds of swing tips from people that maybe really have no business, giving these swing tips. And so they're getting all of this information thrown at them from every form that you can imagine. And, then when they go and take a legitimate golf lesson, they've got bombardment from all of these different social media networks and sites and things like that they get confused. And I think that as a profession, I think that we need to acknowledge and be honest with ourselves, John, as you put out about over-teaching. I think that's one area that we have to look at. But I think we also have to recognize that if we're going to help these people, they've got to be willing to take some time themselves and reciprocate by giving us the required time, not just in a lesson, but also in between lessons and working on the fundamentals that we're teaching them. Otherwise, they're not going to improve. Agree, disagree? Any comments, either one of you?
I agree. No comments.
Well, thank you. I what a great way to wrap up the segment. Then let me. I didn't mean to go off on there, but I think it's important. I think we all understand in this business. I think we understand that we're doing everything. One thing that, and I just going to sort of a pet peeve of mine. And John, you both talked about this, but John, you particularly said about moving up, in the a closer tee. Todd, you mentioned that as well about some of the guys not wanting to play from the red tees because it's labeled the ladies' tees and so forth. But one of the other things that's a bit of a pet peeve of mine is I think that the industry has taken a little bit of a bad approach in trying to get people out playing. I'll give you a good example. Tonight before we came on the air, I'm always getting bombarded with emails from different sources. And, I'm seeing these, 80% off tee times. You can't be giving away, if that's what you're doing to get people to come out and play, you're going to be out of business. And I think this is part of the reason why a number of courses have shut down over the years. Obviously, the recession has hurt a lot of businesses, but, you can't be giving away the shop. And I think there's also even teaching professionals that have come out there that have tried to, cheapen the lessons so much that they just can't make a living. And that's not the way to do it either. I think we have to educate, not just with theories and approaches. We have to educate the consumer and make them understand that if they truly want to get better, it's a commitment on both parts. It's a commitment on the teaching professionals' part or coaches, but it's also a commitment on the students' part as well. If they really want to truly get better, then they have to make a commitment as well in spending the time outside of the lessons working on the things that we're giving them. Agree, disagree?
I agree.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. That's a whole other show in itself.
Yeah, I know.
As race integrity and education.
I agree. let's close it off this way. I think, and guys, again, I appreciate you giving of your time, John Hughes and Todd Elliott. Thank you very much, as always, for coming on the show. I think it was an interesting discussion tonight. We talked about some of the coaches out there and the teacher professionals out there that have some different approaches to the game, and I like the answers that you gave. Certainly, both complimentary, but also not too critical, but certainly gave people something to think about. Let's just take a quick moment, if you will, both of you. Todd, I'll let you go first. Just let the folks know if they're interested in reaching out to you. Obviously, you're slowing down here a little bit as some of the northerners have gone back up. Let the folks know where you are, and if they're interested in connecting with you, how they can go about doing that.
The best 2 or 3 ways is you can always call me by phone. My office phone is 239-642-2840. My email is telliott, that's TELLIOTT, at hideawaybeachclub.org. And probably one of the best ways about golf instruction is where I hang out and like to learn and talk about golf instruction is Twitter. And I'm at Elliott Golf Pro. That's 2 L's and 2 T's and Elliott again, and then Golf Pro. And that's where I like to talk instruction the most.
Perfect. Well said. And John, where can the folks reach out to you if they want to learn how to play this great game a little bit better?
As always, I got to direct them to johnhughesgolf.com. That's my dedicated website. You can get a lot of information about me, the programs I have there. I'm going to start reevaluating that and hopefully have a new site up here shortly. And no hurry to do it. Just want to make sure it's good for everybody. My contact information's there. And if you happen to be at the TPC Sawgrass course tomorrow, I'll be giving free lessons at the North Florida PGA Family Fun Zone, probably between 11 and 4 o'clock based on how much traffic I've got to deal with in the morning. So if you get out there and say hello, come on out and say hello, and we'll share some more stories.
Sounds good. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for giving of your time tonight. I appreciate this on the Special Coaches Corner. Unfortunately, Scott Millman wasn't able to join us tonight, and we'll get him on the next time. But I appreciate you guys giving of your time as always. Great discussion, great answers, and please continue to keep doing the great work that you're doing out there. And John, I want to reach out to you here actually in a moment. I'm going to call you actually once we get off the air here. Something I wanted to mention to you. But anyways, thank you guys for coming on. Again, appreciate it, and I look forward to having you join us on the Coaches Corner panel again in future shows.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you soon. John, I'll be in touch with you in a few moments.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, that was my very special guests, John Hughes and Todd Elliott, both great golf professionals, and certainly a lot of great work that they're doing out there to help all of you get better acquainted on how to navigate around the golf course. And I always appreciate their thoughts and inputs and into this game. Let me just remind everybody one last thing. As I said, I'm going to be closing off early tonight, but let me just remind everybody again, of course, we have the contest, the Golf Talk Live Major Champion Couples Contest. This is for couples out there. And I'm going to tell you very quickly on what you have to do. As I mentioned in previous shows, we have a contest going on here. It's actually going to be a draw. And all you need to do is do this. You email golftalklivcontest@gmail.com. And what you email is this. I want you to select who you think is going to win the next 3 majors. Of course, coming up is the U.S. Open here in just a few weeks, the Open, or British Open as it referred to, and the PGA Championship. You can submit them all at once, or you can submit them individually. I suggest do them individually, because then you'll give you 3 chances at the couples contest. And what you do is select who you think is going to win each of the upcoming events. You have until Friday of each of those events for that event. So in other words, if it's the U.S. Open coming up, you have until midnight Friday for that submission. And conversely for the British Open and the PGA Championship, or you can send them in ahead of time. But Friday is going to be the cutoff for each of the events, so that way you can't cheat and just pick the winner on Monday. But submit your email with all of your contact information, of course. to golftalkliveconsult@gmail.com who you think is going to win the major contest or major champion. Again, the U.S. Open, the British Open, and the PGA Championship. Submit it to golftalkliveconsult@gmail.com. And what will happen is I will go through all of the entries, and for each correct entry, that will go into the draw. And then the week following, the Thursday following on Golf Talk Live, my good friend Mr. Byron Casper will be joining me back on as he helped me put this together. And we'll be doing a draw on that Thursday of who the winner is. And here's what you're going to win. You'll win one night at the bed and breakfast at the Hacienda Hotel in Old Town, San Diego. And that'll also include golfer 2 at the Salt Creek Golf Club, also in the San Diego area. And then your second night is going to be 2 nights. The second night will be also at a different bed and breakfast at the Palm Mountain Hotel and Spa. And again, it'll be golf for the 2 of you at the Encina Golf Club. And also you'll be included will be lunch at the Old Town Tequila Factory, which will be hosted by, of course, Byron Casper. And Byron, of course, for most of you know who he is. He is the son of legendary professional golfer Billy Casper. And Byron, of course, is an international PGA member and instructor, as well as the son of legendary Billy Casper. Included also in the prize is a copy of Billy Casper's last book, The Big Three and Me, where he talks about many of the areas and journeys that he took along his PGA Tour victories and so forth, but also talks about how he stood up against the Big Three, which were Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, and, of course, Gary Player. And some great anecdotes and stories in there as well. And he talks about some of the things that he did and how he played to the level that he did. And, of course, as most of you know, Billy Casper was ranked among within the top 10 all-time golfers. And just a great legend of the game and a very giving individual as well. And the prize, of course, is just in excess of about $1,000. The flight is not included, just to let you know. This is open to all residents of both Canada and the U.S. This particular contest is only available to Canadian or U.S. residents only. As I said, the flight is not included, so you'll have to fly out to San Diego area, but the accommodations and some great golf and, of course, lunch at the Old Town Tequila Factory, which Byron Casper will be hosting, is also included. And as I said, the book from the late Billy Casper, The Big Three and Me, will also be included in the prize. So good luck, everybody. Please keep your entries coming in. Again, just submit your entries for each of the 3 major championships remaining. Some of you already submitted for the Masters already, and thank you for that. But you can submit now for the and up to the Friday of each of the upcoming major championships, the U.S. Open, the Open Championship, or British Open as it's been referred to, and the PGA Championship. You can submit those up into including midnight the Friday of each of the major championships, and we will go through the submissions, and for every correct entry of who you think will win each of the majors remaining in the year will be entered into the draw, and we will do a draw at the Thursday following the PGA Championship. And on that note, I want to thank everybody again for tuning in tonight. I want to particularly thank all of the listeners from around the world for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. And as I say all the time, I truly do enjoy doing this program. It gives me a lot of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teacher professionals like John and Todd, and of course Scott on the show, and a number of authors and entrepreneurs that stop by. It's really through their participation and guest appearances that have helped make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. So again, thank you to all of you for listening, and thank you to my very special guests each and every week. Special thanks to, of course, the sponsors and some of the supporters of the show. Mr. Jonathan Laird goes without saying. He's the editor and owner of South Coast Golf Guide, a great publication here in the southeastern part of the United States. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can request a copy of the guide be sent out to you. If you're planning on coming down, whether it be Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, anywhere in the southeastern part of the United States, if you go to most of the main golf destinations, they will carry it. If not, you can go to South Coast Golf Guide and give you an idea of where some of them are located. And I believe Edwin Watts and some of the major golf outlets are carrying it as well in this area as well. But if for some reason, if you're not planning on coming down until next winter, if you're a snowbird, go to South Coast Golf Guide and request a copy be sent to you. Jonathan will send it out to you as well. And you can get an idea of some of the great courses there. It has all the information how to contact them if you want to book a tee time. It tells you a little bit about the course and gives you some pictures as well, what the course looks like if you've never played. But some great tracks here in the southeastern part of the United States, covering from virtually from Texas right over here to northwest part of Florida and many of the states in between, Louisiana and Mississippi, and of course Alabama and Florida. Also, a special thank you to Meredith Kirk of Meredith Kirk Golf. Go to meredithkirk.com and learn more about Meredith as well. She was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina winner and wore that crown very well, and she's just a great teacher professional as well. And you can go to meredithkirk.com to learn more about her. And she's in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area. So if you want to connect with her and get her to help you with your game in that area, you can reach out to Meredith at meredithkirk.com. And also to another great golf professional, Nicky Litherland, he and his wife Tiffany. Thank you for all of your help in spreading the word and getting it out there on the show. I appreciate all of your great words. And I know I've mentioned this in the past, and I've just been extremely busy. I've been tough getting Nicky on the show here. He's indicated he does want to come on the show, but it's just been scheduling conflict. So I am going to get him on here, I promise. Of course, Nicky and Tiffany are originally from Australia, originally from down under, and now live over here in the United States. And he's a great golf professional, and we want to get him on the show here. But as I said, we're just trying to work out the details and get a scheduling a date that's good for him as well. Also, Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf. Bernie is the founder and owner, president and CEO of Ontic Golf. .com, and Ontic Golf, as I've mentioned many, many times, is a great custom line of putters that Mr. Bernie Pinder has designed and created, and I'm of course the recipient of one that he's given to me, and it's just a great product. And so go to onticgolf.com if you want to find out more. You can actually purchase a putter directly online through the online store. And Bernie will be more than happy to ship that out to you and discuss with you some of the customizations that can be done with Ontic Golf putters. So go to onticgolf.com. Mr. Sean Kelly, of course, the owner of linkedgolfers.com, a great website that showcases many of the great information that you can find in the golf industry from all over the world. Sean, of course, manages the Linked Golfers group which is the largest golf group on LinkedIn, which is a huge business social media network, and he's taken that, of course, out his business, and you can go to linkedgolfers.com, find some great information there as well. Also, Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions from Ireland, thank you. He's a great teacher professional, great club fitter as well. Thank you, Peter, for all of your continued support from Ireland. Always a pleasure to have you say some kind words about the show as well. On behalf of my special guest tonight, John Hughes and Todd Elliott, thank you very much for tuning in to Golf Talk Live, and I will see you next Thursday right here on Golf Talk Live at 6 p.m. Central. Thanks for joining in, guys. God bless and have a great week.